Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Bitcoin managed to pump all the way up to the downtrend lower high on the 4 hour that I have been warning about constantly all week. Literally pinpoint accurate retest, which has been the level on my radar for over a week due to nothing other than very basic market structure. Since we had a low and a lower low, that confirmed our lower high on the trend, basically a 7-week downtrend at this point. To be fair, this downtrend has to break someday, but the trend is your friend until the end, and the end was not broken this push. So better luck next time, bulls. So in today's stream, I just want to do a real quick market update as we trade into our weekend sessions here. Taking a look at Bitcoin on several different time frames, as well as a handful of altcoins, because guys, now is the time where we need to be careful when trading Bitcoin, as it's very much so at a make or break level, in my opinion. And Telegram members, and honestly, even those of you just tuning into my recent live streams, have been well aware of my plans to continue playing the downtrend until it's broken. So I have now filled 3 of my 4 entries for the swing short position, with an average entry price currently sitting at 91,560 US dollars so far. And I also currently have a scalp short position from the same level as my 3rd entry, that 92,988 US dollar level, right at my 4-hour resistance. And so for those of you interested in seeing way more examples of how I look at market structure, how I pull fibs for trade setups, just my overall thoughts on the market, do yourselves a favor and scan the QR code on my BloFin promo on screen. Reminder, guys, my partners at BloFin are currently giving my followers a sign-up promo for a $300 position airdrop for another few days, which will also get you access to my free Telegram channel, just where I show, like I said, more examples how I pull fibs, clear explanations of powerful market structure, just my overall thoughts on the markets in general. So if either of those things interest you, do yourselves a favor and scan the QR code on the BloFin poster on screen. But yeah, like I said, guys, the 4-hour chart, I mean, we've been eyeing up this level for quite a while. I know a lot of people are busy celebrating that the bottom is in, and there's literally nothing suggesting that the bottom needs to be in yet. Don't get me wrong, this is the nicest rally that we've had in a long time for Bitcoin. So yeah, absolutely, we could end up breaking this lower high resistance at this point. However, we haven't yet. So at this point, it makes more sense to me to be a seller at resistance rather than FOMOing long this late. I mean, yeah, if you're in a nice long from significantly lower, fantastic. You know, I would personally be looking at taking some profits and letting some of my position run if that was the case. However, those people getting excited with FOMO as we trade into resistance, yeah, a breakout trade could end up playing out well. However, just understand that if you've been doing that the last 6 weeks, we have continuously been getting shut down by this lower high structure. And like I said, it's a very basic market structure, literally day one stuff, except a lot of people really skip over that step and start overcomplicating trading before getting a real strong understanding of market structure. But as we have it right here, like I said, we have a low here. We ended up setting a lower low down here. The highest point between the two is my confirmed lower high on the trend. And that is currently sitting around 93,000 US dollars. So yeah, at this point, I mean, if the downtrend is going to continue, I would basically expect my reversal at this point, which is why I have those 2 positions. The scalp position, I have been updating my stop loss on the way on the shorter time frames. Basically, as we break this downtrend, I'll lock in my profits because that scalp position is this guy up here. Whereas my lower average price, that's the swing position that I've been laddering into all week, basically, since we ended up testing the 786 from the underside. So yeah, 2 different ways that I am currently playing this. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, guys, the weekly chart, I still think it's very possible that we would push a little bit higher just to get some sort of a retest of that SR flip. You know, this old diagonal support level could very likely end up turning into resistance with some sort of a retest. As well, if this support level is going to act as a typical STUBER. And I've laid out in several videos recently why this isn't exactly an ideal STUBER setup. However, it is still a strong support level on the weekly chart. So I'll give credit where credit is due. We could absolutely get some sort of a nice bounce from here, especially the fact that we tested the 886 absolutely perfectly here. So yeah, I'm not totally blind to the idea that we could go a little bit higher. But again, until that downtrend is broken, I am just looking at playing the downtrend. Eventually, one of these swing positions is going to lose, but the last 6 weeks or so, it has been very profitable playing the downside positions. So I intend to do the same thing. Well, just continue doing that until it ends up breaking. The scalp, I'm not too worried about. Already sitting in a profit no matter what if it ends up getting invalidated. And again, guys, this is actually another setup that I had laid out ahead of time. Just again, showing examples of, just using very basic market structure and using Fibonacci's to point out these levels ahead of time, mentioning basically where I'd be laddering into and where my targets are. And you can see that the first 2 targets there for that STUBER fib setup did play out. So very basic market structure. Looking at the long short ratio on the hourly, this is also something that I mentioned in my last stream, you guys, was that if we end up trading up into my resistance levels, particularly in the STUBER fib pocket here, or even more so that lower high on the trend here, it was very likely that we end up seeing retail start FOMOing long into resistance, as we usually end up seeing. And just notice that where we ended up topping out there and testing that lower high, notice that the retail longs started climbing right as we tested into that resistance. So you can just see that FOMO breakout position, traders basically trying to get into a position, assuming that we're going to break out before it actually happens. So if retail starts very quickly flipping back to the short side of things, in that case, I think that we would have some fuel for the rocket ship and end up testing a little bit higher. And honestly, we could go a little bit higher and still have my concerns on this downtrend, because I do usually have a little bit of wiggle room above that lower high, whether you want to look at it on that chart on the 1 hour or the 4 hour. Either way, I typically like to leave that wiggle room between the 1 and the 115 fibs. That's basically my swing fail zone. That is where I look for liquidity grabs, fake out, like I said, swing fail, failed auction, whatever you want to call it. But basically, we never really did test into that box. So it's still possible that we do that. If that happens, it makes it a little more complicated, because technically we are invalidating the lower high at that point, but it's still possible we end up getting some sort of a rejection. However, if we do something like this and just continue staircasing higher, that's where I can look for the opportunities to be longing the pullbacks, right? As we staircase higher, confirming higher highs on the trend, that's where I can look for those pullbacks to look for long positions. But at this point, since we have not done that yet, we have not created that structure yet, I'm just not overly interested in the long side of things yet. And yeah, I understand I'm not in any good longs from down here. So yeah, I don't plan on catching every single trade, because most of the people who would have ended up catching something from down there were most likely trying to catch the knife the whole way down and taking significant losses for 6 weeks in a row. So I'm okay to wait for a trend to basically show any signs of reversal before I start changing my opinion about the trend, basically. Ethereum. So this is one that we did test into the swing fail pocket. We got about halfway through it. So right now in tricky territory, because yeah, technically we took out this high here. And again, same structure as Bitcoin, right? We had our high, our low here. We had our lower low here. That means this is our confirmed lower high on the trend. We have technically broke that. However, it was more so a swing fail than anything. So it's still possible that we end up getting some sort of a rejection. But, that is at least some sort of strength. And at this point, I would actually be a lot more confident in taking a stab at some sort of a long position if we end up dropping back down to the lows, just because since we have that break there, this would actually be a valid STUBER fib setup at this point. So if we end up dropping on Ethereum down to about 2,725 US dollars, I'll be interested at laddering in some sort of long positions down there. Solana, we did not break the lower high. It looks very similar to Bitcoin, except actually a little bit weaker. We're getting a little bit stronger of a rejection, but similar price action once again, right? We had this low here. We have a lower low here. This was the highest point between the two. So that is our confirmed high on this little trend. And notice where we got rejected. Absolutely pinpoint accurate. I'm not in a position on this or anything. But yeah, I just have concerns about this because again, we're just still respecting a downtrend, respecting that lower high resistance. Even looking at something like this, on the micro downtrend here, we're just setting new lows on this little downtrend here. So I'm hoping to see altcoins get some sort of a nice recovery, especially if Bitcoin ends up actually breaking that 4-hour resistance. I will be much more aggressively starting to look for long positions on altcoins. Right now, I still have mixed feelings about them. We don't have a bullish STUBER on the 4-hour setting up or anything like that. We still just have this downtrend being respected. Aster is a coin that actually looks a lot healthier than a lot of altcoins that I've been watching recently, just because we do actually have an uptrend, right? The fact that we ended up having this lower high, and we ended up breaking this, it would still be very healthy, in my opinion, if we end up dropping lower, let's say all the way down towards about 95 cents. That would still be very healthy. That would be a typical STUBER fib setup. I'm hoping that I can hang on to the remaining 40% of my long off of basically the perfect lows. That was just an absolutely phenomenal trade there. Hopefully some of you guys caught that one with me. Because I did share it live in the Telegram when I was taking it. I shared it on a live stream the day before, I believe it was, that I was eyeing it up. So yeah, it's actually, even though we're trending to the downside right now and we have this little bit of a 4-hour downtrend, it does just look to me like, if anything, we're going down to retest support. And obviously, if we end up breaking it, yeah, anything can happen. But as the chart goes right now, not looking all too bad. Zcash is one I am disappointed that I am no longer in my short position from this STUBER fib that we had back here. But this was a beautiful reversal call either way. It was a profitable position, but the rest got stopped at break even on this little bounce here. Unfortunately, I should have kept my stop loss a little above the 886, but I didn't. But yeah, either way, Zcash at an interesting spot. This is a risky one because the way I see it, we broke the uptrend, right? We ended up losing this structure here, got our STUBER fib pullback. But the thing is that this STUBER fib has technically already played out, right? Actually, it technically played out twice, because we hit the first target once, and then on the second push to the downside, we ended up hitting the first 2 targets. So basically played that whole range, right? We're back down to the lows of the range. And this guy, I mean, on the macro scale, this thing has been on an absolute moon mission. So this thing is a freight train that has left the station, and it is just doing its own thing against the rest of the market, and it has been going absolutely nuts. So it's a bit of a risky trend to bet against, and that's another reason why I updated my stop loss a little early there. But yeah, unfortunately for Zcash, unfortunately, we have an actual confirmed pivot point. The fact that, like I said, we lost this structure here. At this point, it doesn't look great. Not that it looks too bad, and obviously shorting now would be way too late, because the entry was up at around $700 and we're down at around $450 at this point. But just understand that this could go either way. This thing's been volatile either way. I mean, I know there's a lot of traders out there making a killing off scalping this thing because it has been so absolutely volatile, you guys. How are you guys all doing? In the chat, let me know how you're doing. If you guys have been appreciating my level-headed approach and just trading the charts for what they are, and you appreciate the no hopium, but also not the fear, right? Just if anything, although I am pointing out a lot of bearish things in the charts recently, just understand that's coming from a place of excitement as a trader, because as traders, we really shouldn't care all too much which way the charts are trending, because this downtrend has been so healthy. As long as you are looking at playing the trend, as far as the downtrend goes, it has been very healthy, not bullish, but healthy, respecting those lower highs. As we break structure, we end up getting a bounce and retesting resistance before carrying on. All very healthy characteristics in a trending market. So I don't care if we're trending to the downside or the upside. Obviously, just like everybody else, I would love to see the price of everything go parabolic. I would love to see us go into a parabolic bull run. It's just that I want to keep a level head. Obviously, my spot holdings, I treat my investments and my trading very different. Yeah, my investments, my spot holdings, yeah, they're getting their asses kicked on this massive downtrend the last 7 weeks as well. But the trading account has been absolutely loving it, just trading the charts for what it is. And like I said, as long as the market stays volatile, I don't really care which direction we go here. Um, what else? The S&P 500, you guys, we are continuing to climb a little bit. Understand that this is at a potential resistance retest. I've mentioned this in the last couple streams as well. Just the fact that we ended up losing that higher low on the trend because we had a higher high, confirmed higher low. The fact that we lost that level and seeing this bounce, that's not all too uncommon, right? The fact that we reclaimed it here, yeah, that often means that we're going to get some sort of a bounce. Just understand that a bounce and being bullish are two very different things. And I'm not saying this can't break out, much like Zcash, right? It's had a very strong uptrend here, but just understand that there are these warning shots being fired in the structure of the charts. So just understand that we might just be retesting resistance basically anywhere up in this level here. And if we see a big rejection there, I assume Bitcoin would do something very similar. Gold also trying to climb towards some macro resistance for a retest. We have macro STUBER resistance basically coming into play at about 4,275 US dollars. And then our all-time high and swing fail pocket basically starts at 4,380 US dollars. And that basically goes up to 4,457 approximately. So, again, same thing, just like the S&P, just like Zcash, gold has had an absolutely phenomenal run to the upside. And, even though that it lost some structure here, that doesn't mean that all hope is lost. I mean, we had a very similar situation back here where we started some sort of a downtrend. There would have been some STUBER fibs played out there, actually. Let's just take a look here after we lost that low there. Notice we came up, test the 786, boom, successful STUBER fib setup there. Did we end up getting another one from our new confirmed lower high there? Basically pulled to our new low there. And yeah, so notice the same thing. This one only would have hit the first target, but if you would have been shorting something like this, for example, you got your 786, 886, and your 1. So 3 of the 4 entries basically on a fib setup like that, and did hit the 0.5 fib target. So just the first target there. But yeah, basically, so mixed feelings about some assets like the S&P, gold, Zcash, just because, guys, they have been in such a strong uptrend, but understand that there is those warning shots that the uptrend could have come to an end. Not saying it has to have, but it's at least very possible at this point. Silver all-time highs. Let me just take a look at silver. Holy, whatever I have mapped out here is massive, a massive circle. I don't think silver is it at an all-time high? Pretty much. I was warning about this on a stream quite a while ago because I don't even remember mapping this out. Actually, no, I do remember mapping this out. Just understand where silver is right now. Very similar to where it topped out on its last parabolic run. Looks very similar where we had our rounding bottom, climb up, get into that swing fail zone between the 1 and the 115 and get rejected there. Very similar situation right now. So I would like to see it actually pump above basically $56. It would look a lot better because at least my swing fail pocket would be invalidated at that point. And guys, this is literally, I mean, the same people who would be looking to FOMO into this type of a breakout position. We literally had that exact thing on Bitcoin, right? Let's go on the 4-hour and go back. I know so many influencers, you guys are stating that this move, this big dump that we ended up getting on October 10th, that it was all unpredictable. And guys, I mean, some of you may have even been with me. I was talking about shorting up here at about 125.2 thousand US dollars. I was talking about it live that I was more interested in shorting rather than longing because we had that exact setup, right? We had our fib setup, something like this, where I had a fib pull from our all-time highs down to where the range bottomed. We came back up. People got excessively FOMO-ish and excessively bullish as we were getting our all-time high breakout, and those people got absolutely nuked on. And then saying that it was unpredictable and it was manipulation. Guys, just understand we literally had this same setup right before this. Look at this, our previous all-time high here. And look what happened. Oh, we got rejected in that swing fail pocket. So then we end up getting literally the same setup. And people say that it's manipulation and, they're wondering why they got wrecked again. It's just charts doing chart things. It's a swing fail pattern. It's very common, especially since the bigger players got into the space. This is very common price action. So just understand there was nothing, it was crazy how fast that move played out. The day before, I was actually calling for a potential move back down to 107K, and people thought I was crazy. To be fair, I thought it was going to take a month, not a few hours, but the move was written on the wall. The fact that we did have that resistance coming in, so it was absolutely predictable. So just understand that silver currently looking like something similar. Again, it could act different. It could break out and continue staircasing higher. If it ended up doing something like this, just like what I was talking about with Bitcoin on the 4-hour, then yeah, there's opportunities to be buying the dips on the way up as structure trends to the upside. But just understand that we are in a nasty, nasty potential liquidity grab fake out zone right now. So just needs to push a little bit higher, and I'd feel a lot better on that one. Yeah, can't handle the word manipulation, honestly, if I hear it again. I feel the same way. Don't get me wrong, to some extent, yeah, price action technically is a little bit of manipulation in the fact that there is market makers who, have their buy walls and their sell walls. This has always been a thing. Crypto traders think that Bitcoin's the only one being manipulated against and all this sort of thing. Just that hopium of, just thinking that we're special or whatever. But just understand that basically if we want to call it manipulation, if anything, it's just market makers pushing the price in certain directions. And that's literally that manipulation that people are talking about is literally what makes trading easier. Without that, it would be so hard, and there would be scam wicks all over the place. And that's when people would see what real, even that wouldn't necessarily be manipulation, but there would be people crying about manipulation because there'd be scam wicks everywhere. Whereas market makers, if anything, help keep the price a little bit stable. So yeah, if anything, market makers and manipulation is what makes technical analysis work. And that's why I don't give a shit about fundamentals or listening to announcements, reading FOMC meetings, reading tweets. I trade charts, not tweets. And the reason is because we're just trying to get a look at what market makers are doing. And that is our biggest edge in this market. So that's why if that's manipulation, manipulate away, because it's making my job a lot easier. And guys, if you do appreciate these live streams just keeping a level head and looking at the charts for what they are and just being a realistic trader, not the hopium, not the fundamentals, just looking at charts for what they are and trading them, because investing and trading are two very different things. Obviously, yes, fundamentals matter for investing, and fundamentals do push the price in certain directions as well. But if you're trying to trade a 5-minute chart like me, for example, good luck doing that with fundamentals. I literally only know one trader in my life who trades fundamentals well. He's trading a weekly chart, not a 5-minute, not an hourly, not a 4-hourly, not a daily. He's looking years ahead down the line and planning accordingly based on fundamentals. That is very different than us degenerates who are trading low time frames and then trying to get ahead by reading fundamentals and reading headlines and all that sort of stuff. Because guys, I've been there. My first year of trading, I was very much so looking at headlines and trying to make sense of everything happening in the markets. But when I switched to just trading the charts for what they are, doing back testing so that I just know what kind of my probabilities are, and I have no idea what the fundamentals were saying when I was, when those setups were playing out in the replay of my back testing, basically, I have no idea what the headlines were looking like when I back test and go back. And that's why I just play the charts for what they are. So if you do appreciate that, do me a favor, hit that like button. And those of you new to the channel, do yourself and myself a favor and subscribe to the channel. Other than that, guys, this was just a very quick update. I just wanted to get one out there before the weekend because, guys, most likely tomorrow, recently, we have been seeing Saturdays basically flatline. Usually Friday, Saturdays is when we have been basically trading up to our 4-hour resistance levels and then trading sideways for the rest of Saturday until basically a few hours before, or at least when we're getting a little closer to the Sunday weekly candle close. That's when volatility kind of picks up again. So it's very, very likely that we are not going to see anything too exciting tomorrow. Obviously, anything can happen. And if something crazy does happen, I will try and get here to do a live stream. But if not, chances are I won't be back until Sunday. But yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So one last time, if you appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And like I said, for those of you interested in learning and just seeing more examples of some of my favorite trade strategies, some of my favorite, trade setup ideas, how I use fibs, how I view market structure, and just want more of my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor. Get in my Telegram by scanning the QR code on the BloFin poster here, or clicking the link in the description down below. Guys, had some very nice calls in here recently, just looking at market structure for what it is. Here's a good example of very, very in-depth breakdown of how I was looking at my position and how it played out, basically. So yeah, once again, if that's the kind of thing that interests you, do yourselves a favor, scan that QR code. That being said, my friends, thank you for being here with me once again. And have yourselves a fantastic weekend. Stay safe out there. Try and keep a level head in these crazy markets. And those of you in the Telegram, I will be updating you with my thoughts as things change in the market here. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.